Hello to those tuned in, and peace to those suffering. I'm Amanda Sassin, broadcasting from One for All News, home of America's coveted media investigation team that shines light to uncover what is hidden. Today's topic of discussion is American and Russian involvement in the Syrian civil war. There is no doubt that leaders of both countries have had a hand in the events of the region and the pain that men, women, and children alike are facing in Syria. This analysis is particularly important because on April 7, 2017, Trump initiated a missile strike on Syria. The innocent lives affected are at the forefront of media around the world. In this news segment, we will rewind to February, when Russia initiated its very own peace talks in Astana, Kazakhstan. We will focus on how TASS, a Russian news agency, and the New York Times, an American daily newspaper, portray this event using agenda-setting theory, focusing on emphasis in the coverage, and finding out whether either source contains media bias. We welcome everyone to join us on this textual analysis to see how this event is portrayed within a domestic and international framework. Before we begin our analysis, it is important to review the origins of the Syrian civil war to better understand why so many countries have become involved in the conflict. The war began in March 2011, when peaceful protests fashioned after the Arab Spring turned violent. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad approved aggression against the protesters, and it was not long until the Free Syrian Army was formed to overthrow Assad and his government. Russian and American involvement has been open and active, as both countries have vocalized their support for certain sides. America has backed the anti-regime forces, while Russia supports Assad in his military endeavors, even though Putin has initiated peace talks in Astana. These Russian peace talks are separate from the Geneva peace talks organized by the United Nations in Switzerland. Also, it is crucial to point out that the nature of media in Russia and America is fundamentally different. The United States upholds a standard of free media, funded commercially, while Russia's media is censored and government-owned. Historically, relations between America and Russia centered around communism as a threat to political and social freedom. As we head forward in 2017, it looks as if conflicting interests of these two countries will continue to clash, despite Trump and Putin's friendship. Now that we have painted the historical and political picture, let's introduce the theory we will use to analyze TASS and New York Times coverage of the event. Agenda-setting theory is a journalism theory that states the media tells us what to think about and how to think about it. Media sources influence what we think about by producing several articles on an event so that it appears to be a hot topic. Another way to effectively set an agenda is to produce misleading headlines that skew one's interpretation of an event. A study done by Ecker, Lewandowski, Chang, and Pillai in the Journal of Experimental Psychology Applied found that misleading headlines affect readers' memory, their inferential reasoning, and their behavior intentions. They also argue that these effects arise not only because headlines constrain further information processing, biasing readers towards a specific interpretation, but also because readers struggle to update their memory in order to correct initial misconceptions. This leads us to 2 out of our 4 research questions. Does TASS and the New York Times emphasize the Astana peace talks as an important event? How does TASS and the New York Times portray the Astana peace talks? Since both countries are heavily invested in the Syrian civil war, their media sources could potentially favor their country of origin, with biased reporting. This leads us to our last 2 research questions. Is TASS biased in favor of the talks because Russia initiated them? Does the New York Times have a negative bias towards Russia and their peace talks? On March 6, 2017, One for All News media investigation team found and analyzed 7 TASS articles dated between February 16th and March 6th of 2017, and 4 New York Times articles dated between January 23rd and April 7th of 2017. In order to answer our first research question, our team counted the total number of articles from each media source that focused solely on the Astana peace talks. To answer our second question, we analyzed headlines to see if they contradicted information within the article. We also looked at specific words and phrases used in headlines, especially words that set the tone and theme of the article. To answer the third and fourth questions, our media investigation team analyzed quotes in the TASS and New York Times articles that illustrated bias. After conducting a textual analysis, our media investigation team found that TASS emphasizes the importance of the peace talks, while the New York Times does not. There are 6 TASS articles covering the details of the event, and only 2 New York Times articles. Another observation is that, although there are several TASS articles covering the event, they tend to be extremely brief because of the nature of news agencies. TASS portrays the peace talks as significant by uncovering the event as it unfolded. We also found that the New York Times portrayed the peace talks as unsuccessful by emphasizing negativity in a headline titled, "First Day of Syria Peace Talks Quickly Descends into Quarreling," from January 23, 2017. The article appears extremely negative in the headline, and the first sentence states, "The first face-to-face meeting between Syrian rebel fighters and government officials in nearly 6 years of civil war ended abruptly on Monday, when diplomatic talks quickly devolved into harsh words and competing accusations." However, as one reads further into the article, the authors reveal a different perspective, one of neutrality. The sentence states, "Many diplomats and analysts say the more meaningful talks are those that have been held in recent months, largely in secret, among Russia, Turkey, and Iran." The New York Times overwhelmingly emphasizes negativity to set an agenda of disarray in Astana, potentially to undermine Russia's peacemaking power in the civil war. The headlines of the New York Times articles include words and phrases such as "quickly descends," "quarreling," "clash," and "some progress." In contrast, TASS uses positive trigger words and phrases in several headlines. These words and phrases include praises, initiating, effective, promote dialogue, create better environment, peace process, setup mechanism, adopts document, and depends on. 2 central themes of the TASS headlines are peace and action in favor of Russia's peace talks. Such a positive emphasis on the peace talks led our investigation team to believe that TASS reports with bias. In an article titled, "UN Commissioner Praises Russia for Initiating Astana Process" from February 22, 2017, there is an entire section within the article titled, "Help in Solving Humanitarian Crisis." The statement in this article and the progress towards peace promoted by Russia is contradicted by an article titled, "Syrian Army Smokes Out Terrorists from Northwestern Aleppo" from March 6, 2017, shortly after the Astana peace talks were held. This led our investigation team to ask, how could a country so dedicated to peace be using such wording to describe events they are working to cease? Ultimately, we found that TASS is biased in favor of Russia. Our media investigation team also found that the New York Times has a negative bias towards Russia in their peace talks because of the usage of the word Kremlin in a negative context. Across all of the articles, the word was used 8 times. This is significant because according to an article by Philip Deary in Social Alternatives, Kremlin entered the vocabulary of the Cold War to fix in people's minds the character of Russian communism. In an article titled, "Russia and U.S. Clash Over Syria and Security Council Vote" from February 28, 2017, Kremlin is used to describe Russia's veto, the division between Russia and the United States, and distrust towards Russia. In Syria Strike Puts U.S. Relationship with Russia at Risk from April 7, 2017, quotes like "Kremlin denounced President Trump" and "faulting the Kremlin" are used. The New York Times also writes that Russia's flexed its military muscles. In this news segment, we uncovered that both news sources aim to set an agenda. Perhaps both countries are looking to assert the upper hand. TASS used peaceful action words to emphasize positivity, while the New York Times used adverse words to emphasize negativity. We also uncovered that TASS overwhelmingly reports with bias in favor of Russia because of the contradiction from one news story to the next. The New York Times also reports with bias by using Kremlin as a substitute for Russia in a negative context. Are the peace talks really making progress, or is Russia just attempting to create a facade of compromise while the U.S. denounces Russia and its actions altogether? The information we have discovered in this segment will lead us to our segment next week on the American missile strike and the boiling relationship between America and Russia. We hope that Syrian suffering is halted in the near future. Peace and happiness to all. Thank you.